the only really pressing issue at the moment is the fact that, it's important to acknowledge that Aaron Rodgers still is not a member of the Pittsburgh Steelers. He's going to Q&As. He's in the public, so he's
Yeah.
not retreating in any way, shape, or form. At this point, is it just whenever he gets there, he gets there?
Yeah. So I think there are a couple things that I've been able to ascertain over the last couple of weeks. I don't think anything has changed as far as the Steelers' expectation that he is going to be there. And I think that a big piece of this for the Steelers is respecting his space and understanding that if they had signed him, and we went over this, I think earlier in the week, that if this was like April 1st and they're signing him and then he's saying, okay, I'm going to go take care of these personal matters, I'll let you know when I'm going to be back. Well, then they would be kind of almost like planting this black cloud over the team. And, so every time they got to go to an OTA or an off-season program, anytime they're open to the media, it's like, where's Aaron? Where's Aaron? Where's Aaron? And
Right.
this avoids that. The other thing that I think is important here, from what I understand, Aaron took it pretty hard. Last year, and was a little pissed over the way that his trip to Egypt was disseminated, covered, all of that. And I don't know that he really points the finger at the Jets for that, but I do think that left some scars in that, like, why would I subject myself to the constant scrutiny of whether or not I'm going to be there or not when I know I'm not going to be there for a while anyway? So I'm better off just waiting and keeping the powder dry. And, when I'm all in, then I'll sign. So I think that's sort of what's at work here. Now, I would say there's an important checkpoint coming up, at least from the Steelers standpoint, and that's the veteran minicamp, which is, I believe, June 10th to the 12th. You can fact check me on that. I think those are the dates. So about 2 weeks from now, a little less than 2 weeks from now. So I think we are entering into a critical stage. We're not at the critical date yet, but we are entering into a critical stage. And I do think, Tomlin, Arthur Smith, Omar Khan, like, it would be beneficial for all those guys to have him there for that. So at least they can kind of create a baseline heading into the summer.
Um, just by the way, a peek behind the curtain. I have a story going up, and so when you have a story going up, your editors email you the what the headline is going to be for the story, and you get a chance to look it over if you have any suggestions. And our esteemed head NFL editor John Plume is sending out the story, and then he's doing a hit on Minnesota radio. Possibly to talk about Stephon Diggs. So I actually just sent him the phonetic pronunciation of 2C. And so he's ready. He's ready to talk pink cocaine on Minneapolis radio. Such a bummer that this happened before my bold predictions column, because I would have had a lot of fun with that. Rodgers, I had thought, at least from my angle, it seemed like, and he had mentioned before that he had some people in his inner circle who were dealing with some health issues. Hopefully all that has gone well in his universe, but I'm interested in the psyche of, and maybe this goes back to Favre, where, he had a formative influence on Rodgers, certainly, and Favre was just kind of a show up and play guy. Rodgers, to me, felt and saw how everything went last year with the Jets, and wouldn't you want to leave no stone unturned if this was your last season? But it's interesting to me that, like, he just seems to be, and again, I'm putting the personal in one bucket, and if that is something that needs his constant attention, then good on you, and so be it. But if there's a way to be there, at least for part of this, wouldn't you want to leave no stone unturned? Because that's just constantly a part of that narrative on you, right? And
Yeah.
if you don't have the relationship with the wide receiver, Egypt was brought up certainly during the Jets season last year when Mike Williams ended up getting discarded after, I think it was the Minnesota game, right? Where they were totally not on the same page on that back shoulder fade at the end of the game. And then Devontae Adams comes in. Wouldn't you not want that to just be part of the conversation? And if you're not, I don't know. I mean, maybe this is something
I guess yes, but like, at the same time, what are we talking about? You know what I mean? Like, so you avoid the is he showing up, is he not showing up thing from getting like truly rampant in the spring.
yeah.
And I think the reality of it is, if you get to the fall and it looks like crap anyway, then like people are going to say what they're going to say.
Yeah,
You know what I
that's
mean?
true.
And
Yeah,
like if you win, then it all goes away. So I think it becomes sort of like this zero sum game for them. You know what I mean? Like where it's like either we're winning and everything's great and we're maximizing TJ Watt and Minka Fitzpatrick and Cam Hayward in that core while that core still has time left together, or we are 4-6 in the middle of November and holy crap, this is a bleep show. I mean, it
right,
almost feels like it's going to be one or the other anyway. You know
right,
what I mean? Because I mean, Rodgers, for better or worse, has that almost like Brett Favre effect now, where no matter what, like everything is going to be a big deal, you
right.
know? So if they succeed, it's going to be a huge deal. If they fail, it's going to be a huge deal. There's almost like there's no middle ground. You know what I mean? Like, so I would think, I would think that like basically like you're just trying to, at this point, um, manage what is going on around you. And if you weren't going to be able to show up anyway, again, like I think that's part of this. And you know, he's been traveling around and everything else. And then I could see where it's like, well, I'll just sign when I'm all in and when I'm ready to just show up and be part of the team full on. And I'll bring guys to California in July before training camp to get them ready. Like there are ways around this. And you know, it's interesting because I almost by default bring up Favre, but this is exactly the way it went with Favre at
Yeah,
the end. You
yeah.
know what I mean? Like it was like every summer. I mean, you remember, right? Like Ed Werder and Rachel Nichols parked out front. I think Scott Hansen actually, believe it or not, people don't remember this. Scott Hansen was was a member of the stakeout crew there in Hattiesburg, Mississippi.
Oh yeah,
Before he became the red zone guy, he was kind of the NFL Network field reporter that was on the ground there. And it was like day to day. It was it's and then he shows up and they had a great year in 2009 and everything worked out. And then in 2010, it went the other way. You know, Aaron observed all of that. You know what I mean? Like Aaron saw all of it. Like, and I think, you know, because Brett pulled it off, you know, I think he's got a pretty strong belief that he can pull it off too without the benefit of OTAs.
and so let's put a bow on it this way because you
Yeah.
and I have both covered OTAs. What ultimate like do you think that there is a marked difference between being there for OTAs and not being there for OTAs if you're the quarterback of the football team?
Yeah. I think it's valuable or else they wouldn't do it like to the
Right,
level they do it. You know what I
right,
mean? Like I'm not one of these guys that thinks like practice is irrelevant. Like I don't think that. Like I think there's a reason why the game in certain ways is simpler now than it used to be, and I think it has a lot to do with the practice rules at both the college level and the NFL level. There are lots of things that have been simplified. Where, I mean, it's the one word play calls. It's the boards on the sideline in college. You know what I mean? It's Sean McVay in Jared Goff's ear until the 15-second cutoff. Like all that stuff is
right.
because they have less practice time. You know what I mean? Like, so you can say what you will about the importance of it. There's material evidence that like teams have had to get creative to make up for all the time they've lost. So if that's the case, like, of course that's valuable, you know,
Right.
and having a rapport with DK Metcalf and with Calvin Austin and with Roman Wilson and with Pat Fryermuth is going to be important. That's going to be important, you know? So I'm not going to sit here and tell you like you would rather not have him there for the last 6-7 weeks. Like, no, you would rather have had Aaron Rodgers in your building for the last 6 or 7 weeks if you're the Steelers. But you're also in this position where your roster is so leveraged to win right now that, and your quarterback situation was such a mess, and you're still kind of feeling the effects of the Kenny Pickett miss. Like, it's what other choice do you have? You know, like Aaron Rodgers at maybe 85% of capacity. Let's just say, well, maybe that's not fair. Whatever the number is, 90% capacity because he missed OTAs is still better than what you've got.
Don't tell Terry Bradshaw that. He's still on the Kenny Pickett train and he's on some deep Arkansas radio shows whooping up about it. Told Rodgers to go chew some bark, which is like a fun It's like a fun thing for an 80-year-old to say to someone else.
I don't like, you know what though? Like, I don't get the sense for all this noise. I I don't get the sense that like the Steelers and Rodgers are at odds
I don't
over any of
either.
this. Like I I get the sense, like having talked to people there, that like while they don't know and they don't have definitive answers, I think everybody's on the same page. Like I don't think there's any sort of like, oh my God, like I can't believe this is still dragging on. Like I think they would rather have him there, but I don't think I don't think it's at the point where it's like, screw this, we're gonna walk away from him.
Right. And I'll say this to finish. Like, again, there are still a bunch of people in that Jets building last year that loved him from the start of the season to the end of the
Yeah.
season. Like, just and everyone could say, "Oh, he's crazy." Like, and first of all, I would like to verbalize my point on this too. Everyone that thinks that Rodgers is nuts because of what he says on podcasts or anything like that, take a trip around an NFL locker room. There's all types. It is a microcosm of society, and I'm putting nuts in air quotes here because, again, to each their own. Everybody can have their own thoughts and opinions on everything in society, and it is what it is. But it's not like Rodgers walks into that place and everyone looks at him like a space cadet. I think that there's a lot of people who probably either agree with him on some of his stances or find themselves on different sort of wavelengths like Aaron Rodgers. And so, I don't, it's not like Rodgers coming into our house and talking
Yeah.
to us at our dinner table, right? It's different. It just is. And he's got an aura about him, and he's got a respect to him that a lot of coaches still admire. So I really do think that, like you said, the relationship is not what we're making it to be.